Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday Talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm one of your two hosts, Nor Kyle. And
I am the other one of your two hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
yay! Well, thank you so much for joining us. As always, we need to start with a little bit of a YouTube spiel. And it's a little bit different now because we have reached our 1,000 subscriber milestone, which again is huge. And speaking of huge, we are still growing, which is pretty damn exciting. Thank you to
Read
you all for
frightening.
that. I mean, for me it is. For him, it's just like super exciting and in a relief, given that it gives us much more agency over our presentation here on YouTube. And all things considered, that is a wonderful thing. So, what do we need to discuss with our YouTube spiel now?
Well, now we say, if you're watching us on YouTube, welcome. We
Yeah.
are delighted to have you. If this is your first time, you are doubly welcome, and we hope to amaze and surprise you with the weirdness of our talks. If you have not subscribed to us, let me encourage you to hit that old subscribe button, just because it'll make us feel good. We are happy to have as many subscriptions as we can get now, though we aren't going to be pushing you to do it. And we would love to have comments from you. We try and answer every single comment, though we do have certain rules around comments that some people may or may not be aware of, and they will be posted in a pinned comment at the beginning of each of our videos from now on. It's basically, don't be an asshole. To put it in just a few terms, you can read the thing. It's not really a big deal one way or the other.
And this is going to be at the top of our comments, right?
Yes.
That's
it'll be pinned to the top of each comment.
Of each comment thread. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, whatever it is.
Yeah, the thing.
You'll see. You'll see what we mean. So there is that. That is one of the new things that we are.
Yeah. But we are delighted to have you here. We are delighted to have your support. And we will try and entertain you. Feel like I should be shouting, "Are you not entertained?"
We'll see about that. All right, so let's leap into what we're going to be discussing. So this is going to be a two-parter. We're going to have part one this evening, and next Sunday evening we are going to have part two. Interestingly enough, next Sunday is our two talk Sunday, so we will have one talk in the morning, which will be an independent subject, and then in the evening, we will have a continuity between this week and next week. So you can look forward to that. And what we're going to be discussing this evening is a sacred text from, as we said earlier, broadly the Hindu tradition. We're going to be covering the Spanda Karika. We're going to be covering the first half of that. So I think there are 52 verses in all. And
52 verses in all. It's a very short piece of work.
Yeah, so we'll be covering 26 of those this evening and 26
Hopefully.
Next weekend. Yes, God willing.
Yeah.
We'll see what we have time for, won't we? But that is the plan.
So, Spanda Karika. This was written down somewhere around 800 in the Common Era. Don't know exactly when. It's attributed to the sage Vasugupta, who was also the supposed author of the Shiva Sutras, and both of which are very important texts as far as I'm concerned. There are some extremely important texts that come out of this tradition that are universally applicable. So the word spanda It's an interesting Sanskrit word. It means a vibration, a throb. If you think of a sound that is a throb, that goes on forever from the beginning of the universe to the end, that's kind of sort of beginning to hint at what Spanda is. Spanda is the universal vibration. Imagine that you are 1 minute before the Big Bang, which is kind of hard to do because we don't know anything about what that's like. But here you are in this instant before the Big Bang. And then all of a sudden, the universe appears. And there is a vibration to that. And that vibration from that moment to now to the end of the universe is one continuous thing, and it moves through everything, every single thing. It moves through space, it moves through all matter, it moves through the gases, it moves through photons, it moves through everything. That's kind of beginning to sound like what Spanda is. Karika is a form of writing. It is to write a profound truth in verse. And in the Sanskrit, this is a verse. And if my Sanskrit pronunciation were any good, I would read it to you that way so you could hear it, but it ain't, but you can find it in places and listen to it if you want. My interest is in translating this so that specifically English speakers can get a sense of what the heck this means. So I wrote in the introduction to the written part of this, and I'm going to read this because it's actually pretty good. Spanda is a Sanskrit term for the subtle creative vibration of the universe as it manifests into the dynamism of living form. Spanda is movement. It is expressed by Shiva in the form of Nataraj, the Lord of the dance. Spanda is the joyous shout of creation, the pranava, which is expressed by the syllable om. It is the vibration that is found at the core of each atom, and it is the music of the galaxies as they spin outward from the moment of creation. Just as Shiva represents the still point at the center of being, Shakti represents the movement of existence. The interaction of these two forces create the ongoing universal vibration that is Spanda. I should also mention that throughout this translation, I have used the term yogi to represent the fully integrated human being who has freed herself / himself from the mechanical conditioning of ego and exists in abiding non-dual awareness. So what I propose to do is that we will read for you a line, and we will discuss it if we need to, or I will comment on it, or Nur will comment on it. And then we will carry on from there. Sound good? Doesn't matter if it doesn't sound good because we're going to do that anyway. So,
Levita is amused already.
you know, if I cannot keep Levita amused, I am not doing my job. So the first verse states, Shankari Shakti, the source of living power, turns her awareness outward, and the universe is absorbed within her consciousness. She turns her awareness inward, and the universe is manifested within her. So, Shankari Shakti, interesting phrase. You can translate that as beneficent energy. Shakti, as I said a few moments ago, is the movement and energy that is found in movement. Shankar is the root of Shankari. That's just the feminine form. And it kind of means goodness, beneficent, positive energy. Jayesh, help me out here. How would you define it, since it's kind of, you're more conversant with these definitions than me?
Precisely, I'm not aware of the meaning, but Shankar in India is the Lord, one of the name of Lord Shiva.
Yes.
Shankar, yeah. Shiva Shankar, we say.
Yep, there are lots of mantras around using that word.
Yeah.
So, now you will find this throughout this document, this idea of the inward and the outward.
I can give it a try. Shankara, kara means to do. Shang means to pause, to be in silence, kind of thing. Shankara.
Nice.
To shaman. Shaman means to. I'm not exactly getting the word, but shaman means to pause, kind of thing.
Thanks, Jayesh.
Good.
Or
Yeah.
to stop, precise word. Shankara, to stop.
Good. That will give us that works in well with this verse. So you have Shakti as a personification. Turns her awareness outward. Her awareness goes onto the field of existence, and the universe is absorbed within her consciousness. She turns her awareness inward, and the universe is manifest within her. So this is almost like a cosmic breathing, a cosmic inhale and exhale. Does that make sense? Good. Then we're going to go on to the second verse, which will elaborate on the first, which states, the sacred vibration, the very signature of creation, impossible to veil, limitless, formless, brings forth the universe. Now, this is in some ways the basis of this whole document, the idea of Spanda, the sacred vibration, as the primal force that manifests this reality. There are some hints at this in things like string theory and superstrings and things like that, which are admittedly kind of beyond my math, but I find interesting in that you have these tiny 11-dimensional things that are vibrating through the universe and somehow creating everything that we experience. So the ancient sages maybe were onto something. So can you imagine as if the universe were one string on an instrument and it were plucked, and the bridge of the string is the beginning of existence, and the nut at the top of the string is the end of existence, and you have this vibration moving through the string. It's kind of like that. Aaron says, it seems like a good description for quantum phenomena. And I suspect that it kindly is. This is where everything just goes all quantum on us. So line 3 says, even within samsara, the yogi goes straight to the unitary source because the spanda remains immutable as the underlying vibration of existence. So samsara is our collective existence here and now in this world, so sort of, kind of. Samsara is consensus reality. It's not what is, it's what we imagine it to be in a certain sense. And it is often equated to illusion. Now, it's a persistent illusion because if you walk into a wall, it's going to hurt. So it's not illusion in the sense of it'll all blow away, but it is illusionary in the sense that it is created through, in a certain sense, our agreement with ourselves that this is the world. Jayesh, any thoughts on this?
It's like Maya, the veil, which we have absorbed that this is a reality, but it is not. And the task of a seeker is to cut this veil, this Maya, and become free from it.
Yeah. And Maya is the goddess of illusion and dreams. We like her a lot. She is probably the most popular goddess in the world in her 10,000 different forms. Now, some of you at this point may be asking, hey, what's up with you? You're a Sufi type, and that means you're a monotheist, and here you are talking about gods and goddesses and all like that. It's simple. That is a descriptor for reality, just as the use of the 99 names is a descriptor for reality. So if I say Shiva, I understand Shiva as a particular quality of movement and energy in the universe. If I say Maya, I understand her as a particular quality of energy and manifestation within the universe. It doesn't matter to me whether they're personified or not. It's all the same thing when you get right down to the bottom of it. And most of the Hindus that I've talked to will say, yeah, we have all these gods, but it's actually just one thing, manifesting in 10,000 different ways. It's just easier to talk to them when they're broken up. And that makes perfect sense to me. Of course, I am making generalizations here that maybe I shouldn't make, but if I get too out of line, Jayesh will slap me upside the head. So we have that as an idea that even within the illusionary world, the yogi, the one who has unified and integrated themselves, goes straight to the unitary source because the spanda remains immutable as the underlying vibration of existence. Line 4, all the relative states manifested from the ego find their source in the flow of being. All the relative states manifested from the ego find their source in the flow of being. That means relative states are the egoic stuff. They're the samsara. But even samsara in its essence is flowing from being. and being and spanda are directly connected. We'll get to that later. 5 states, neither pleasure nor suffering, subject nor object, nor intellect have any objective existence. They are merely manifestations of spanda. Neither pleasure nor suffering, subject nor object, nor intellect. Intellect, not being, they're 2 different words, have any objective existence. They are merely manifestations of spanda. Manifestations of the basic reality of the basic vibration of the universe as it moves through the field of existence. 6 is, thus, the activity of the senses, though unreal in the objective, moves from the universal vibration to connect with their objects. This gets interesting. Thus, the activity of the senses, though unreal in the objective, moves from the universal vibration to connect with their objects. So if we equate spanda with being, then being is moving through the illusion and connecting with the objects within the illusion. So I have my teacup here, handy teacup. And my being is connecting with this and in a sense manifesting this through my awareness. If I wasn't aware of the teacup, it wouldn't be here for me. It might spill in my lap and I would have to explain that to myself, but my being and my awareness have an active participation in this. So from the universal being to the objects given to consciousness, that is the actual flow. And that means, and this is very interesting, that consciousness is intentional. Consciousness is active and is actively creating the objects given to it in a very real sense. Does that mean that you're creating the car that's driving down the street? And if you step out in front of the car and you stop believing in it, it won't run you over? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It means that you are creating your own experience of whatever that object is that is moving through space-time. And you are defining it as a particular car, whereas somebody else might experience it as a different car. So that's the active part of the creative act. Make sense?
Any questions so far?
Also,
Yeah,
the being comes into contact with objects via senses.
Yes.
So, yeah. So we use senses to connect with the world, though it looks real, but it is illusory. But then, at one point in time, till we realize it, we are dwelled in samsara and its activities via senses.
Yeah.
And the person in coma doesn't have any connect with the world.
You didn't realize when you came here this evening that we were going to make you work, did you? So anybody have any questions on this so far? Clear as mud?
Some nods. I think we're doing okay so far.
Okay, well, let's get us on to the next.
Yeah, so I had to step away for a minute, but we are on verse, what? I would love to read a few.
We're on verse 5.
Verse 5.
We have just finished verse 5. Neither pleasure nor suffering, subject nor object, nor intellect have any objective existence. They are merely manifestations of spanda. Thus, the activity of the senses, though unreal in the objective, moves from the universal vibration to connect it with their objects, which is kind of what Jayesh was just saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one of my favorite lines here, line 7, to grasp this truth is to experience absolute freedom. So let's look at these two lines together. Thus, the activity of the senses, though unreal in the objective, moves from the universal vibration to connect with their objects. To grasp this truth is to experience absolute freedom. All right, what do you think that means?
Well, you'd say it's unreal in the objective. That's implying that it becomes real in the subjective. But surely that can't be the case because of all my conditioning makes it not real. My
Yeah,
senses are
in the subjective, its reality is, I mean, in the subjective, you're hallucinating it.
Aaron adds, it's like a shared dream that we all have mutual agreements or disagreements about.
Yeah. So the senses are fun because the senses can easily lie to you. So you're walking along a trail and it's dusk. And you look up the trail and you see a snake laying across the trail. And you go, oh my God, there's a snake laying across the trail. And you know you got to get past that snake. So you very, very carefully get closer and closer, and the snake becomes clearer and clearer until that moment where you get close enough that the snake becomes the branch from a sage bush that it always was. And you go, oh, that wasn't a snake. But while you were seeing the snake was real to you. And so this again goes back to the intentionality of consciousness. We take what our senses give us and we craft a reality from it.
Where does the freedom come from that you spoke of? Is it in the
The freedom,
moments? Is it in the moments when the snake becomes a stick, or is it something much more than that?
it's much more than that. It's the freedom comes from realizing that it is neither a stake nor a stick, but our perceptions hold it as that. And if we have enough agreement, in a certain sense, if everybody in the universe agrees that that wiggly thing with the fangs is a snake, then it's kind of a snake. But we have to understand that we are making our reality as we go along, at least in the subjective sense.
So is the freedom in my ability to change my reaction to the experience at will?
Yeah, you can change your reaction to the experience. But most of the time you won't. Why won't you?
Because I'm too attached. I'm too my concepts are too powerful and etched into my thought pattern.
And your conditioning is such that you fall into a habitual pattern of these things. The universe that you experience is mostly habitual patterning. This is not saying that there is not an objective universe. I am personally convinced that there is an objective universe, and one day I might experience it. You never know. So, the next verse begins to address this. When being looks beyond empirical ego and comes into contact with Spanda, being realizes itself as one with the sacred vibration. And then the next verse, which goes with this, liberated in this way from the multiplicity of impulses tied to the ego, the yogi experiences reality directly as truth. So let me read these two lines to you again. When being looks beyond empirical ego and comes into contact with Spanda, being realizes itself as one with the sacred vibration. Liberated in this way from the multiplicity of impulses tied to the ego, the yogi experiences reality directly as truth. So what do you all think of that? Don't everybody answer at once.
We have Jonathan chiming in.
Jonathan, chime in.
So empirical, to me, that means I've had a direct experience of, like, if I know that I will be refreshed by drinking this water because I've had empirical experience in the past of having that. So
And yet you drink that water and you are not refreshed. How do you know that it's even water until you experience it? It could be vodka. In which case you won't be refreshed, but you might not care. So in the sense of empirical ego, so when being looks past what you're talking about, the ego that experiences all the things in the world, and comes into contact with what is behind that, it realizes that it is one with and identical with the sacred vibration, with the Spanda. Is kind of what it's saying here.
Excuse me.
is this a level of direct experience beyond and much closer to the source?
Yes.
Which makes the direct experience much more freeing and valuable.
Everybody's so quiet with this one. I thought we were going to have like rousing arguments.
Rousing arguments. Are we aiming
Yeah.
for argument?
Well, in the philosophical sense of everybody putting forth their ideas on this. Argument doesn't mean being angry with each other. It means putting forth a discussion in defense of a position or in support of a position. Ilmar, what do you think so far?
Well, I'm kind of referring a lot of this to my current favorite metaphysical position, which is sort of analytic idealism. And on that view, there's basically this field, this conscious field, whatever else properties it might have, it's a conscious field, which is constantly it's not quiescent, it's constantly in a movement, which may be what this Spanda thing is hitting. Now,
very close.
From that viewpoint, what needs to be explained is how you and I differ. And on that view, you and I are basically alters in that field, kind of like, split personalities of this one conscious field. Now, how do we perceive? What we perceive, as a suggestion was, the metaphor here that works for me, at least, is kind of the metaphor of the dashboard. We're flying an airplane blind, can't see through the window, but we're relying on the dashboard. And that dashboard informs us accurately, about what the real world is like. It keeps us out of storms and out of mountains and stuff like that. But what we see is the dashboard. And the suggestion here is that in the world in general, the dashboard is what we see as the physical world. That's our.
You just froze up on us, Ilmar.
Sorry?
You just froze up on us.
Oh.
You were talking
Which
about
sucks. Yeah, you were right at the exact point I was hoping you would be getting to, and
the
camera
last
froze.
sentence.
Am I back now, or am I still frozen?
You're back
good.
now, yes.
You're good now.
Okay. Well, so I'm not sure where it froze up, but
Right when you started using the dashboard metaphor.
Okay, and so the idea of the dashboard is that instead of seeing the actual clouds that I'm flying through and the mountain that's approaching, all I'm seeing is the dashboard inside the airplane, the cockpit. It's an accurate dashboard. It gives us accurate information about what's out there, but it certainly doesn't look like, the dial on the dashboard doesn't look like that mountain that I'm just avoiding. So to carry the metaphor out, you and I, when we're interacting with the real world, which is this vibration of this conscious field, our perception of that is essentially our private dashboard on it, which looks like the physical universe, the physical world, trees, mountains, cats, dogs, etc. And those are accurately reflecting what's really out there, but don't look like it, necessarily. So, this is, basically we're back to Kant's notion of, noumena and phenomenon, and so the noumenal world we're not directly experiencing. We're experiencing a dashboard, essentially, is the phenomenal world. Except for, as Schopenhauer pointed out, the one thing that we can directly experience in noumenon, which is ourselves, as we introspect and get to know, in a sense, our real self. And there, and I think there was one of your verses there which suggested that process opens us up to the real. And maybe the only way we can get to the real is
what you describe is very close to what this is talking about.
Exactly. I think so. That's what intrigued me about it when I first read your translation.
Yeah. There's only a couple of little things that I would tweak on it, on your description, which I don't call the field consciousness.
Not
I would say,
it has property of being conscious, and maybe much more to it
yeah,
than that.
or it doesn't, but it has the property of being.
Yes, yes.
And my take on this is suggesting that most of the time, the being is not conscious in the sense that this describes conscious.
Okay.
And when it comes to the dashboard, I think that that's a really excellent metaphor. And the dashboard will describe accurately some things, and other things it will not describe at all. And that's part of the illusion, is that the dashboard will tell you there's a mountain in front of you, but it won't tell you the aroma of the flower growing on the side of the mountain.
Actually, it's almost the reverse of that. The dashboard, the physical, is the one that has all the qualities of the experience. The thing in itself, if physics is correct, is basically point masses and distances and so forth, you know. But
most airplane dashboards are not designed to smell the flowers.
I agree. But that's why
it chooses, the dashboard always chooses what it thinks is important and what it thinks is unimportant.
Exactly, exactly. And it's probably an evolutionary process how we developed our particular dashboard to relate to the world. You know,
if you stop and smell the roses when the tiger is coming up behind you, you do not pass on your genetic material.
Exactly. On the other hand, there was something that selects for being able to smell the roses. You know, so
yes.
I mean, it's a longer story, and that, but I'm rather intrigued by this metaphysical view, and I found your translation of the Spanda Karika sort of suggestive along the same lines.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that my translation, while it is not an exact word-for-word translation, because that makes no sense at all. If you do word from word from the Sanskrit to the English, I think that I got pretty true to the spirit of it, and I think we're talking about the same spirit.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, some of the quote-unquote Advaita teachers, the non-dual teachers, in particular Rupert Spira, is very much in agreement with this particular metaphysical view. Also comes to not from the science and so forth, which Bernardo Costa, who is the main exponent of this, has, but rather from introspection and stuff like that. So
interesting. Yeah, because some of the Spanda Karika kind of calls out the what we think of now as the modern non-dual teachers, the non-Hindu, non-Indian, the white guys and white girls. I think of them as the non-dual bros and the non-dual babes, which you find on YouTube. Yeah. Did I say that out loud? I'm sorry.
You've said that a few other times, so
yeah,
just repeating your misdemeanors here.
Yeah,
so,
and we'll speak more about that as we get further in the
yeah, and I'm obviously going to have to read more lines at once, otherwise we'll be here all night.
Yeah, and I'm happy, like I said, I'd be open to reading them too. So
yes,
whatever works best. We are where? Yeah, we are at.
Okay, we're at 10 now.
10.
Then the yogi realizes that awakened being is both the universal agent and the subjectivity that perceives the world. Thus, immersed in this truth, she knows and acts according to that knowing. Which I think may be what Ilmar and I were just knocking around there a moment ago.
I'm going to read that one more time.
Yes.
Okay.
Then the yogi realizes that the awakened being is both the universal agent and the subjectivity that perceives the world. Thus, immersed in this truth, she knows and acts according to that knowing. I should tell you that for this text, I made the awakened individual female and the asleep individual male just to piss off the patriarchy. Because saying he, she doesn't work for the flow of the translation. So then we get to 11. How can the wheel of samsara hold the yogi, full of wonder, experiencing the flow of the universal vibration as the source of perceived reality? So you take these two lines and you think about the whole conversation that Ilmar and I just had, because it goes directly to line 10 in this, I think. Then the yogi realizes that the awakened being is both the universal agent and the subjectivity that perceives the world. The universal agent, being itself, and that being as it creates its subjective individuality to perceive the world. Thus, immersed in this truth, she knows and acts according to that knowing. How can the wheel of samsara, this is that idea of the wheel of reincarnation, coming back and back into the illusion, being asleep through illusion after illusion after illusion. Hold the yogi full of wonder, because that's what happens when you come to this realization. Experiencing the flow of the universal vibration as the source of perceived reality. There is a point when you work with this idea that you start feeling the spanda moving through your experienced world. And there's a lot of different kinds of ways of that being expressed throughout history. If you listen to Indian music, for instance, there's the tampura being played in the background. And to me, that always feels like the underlying flow of spanda out of which the music of the sitar or whatever else is being played comes.
Is that the drone?
Yeah, that's the drone.
Yeah.
When you listen to overtone chanting, I get the same feeling. Being able to create these overtones with your throat feels a whole lot like trying to mirror the spanda. When you play the didgeridoo, it's also even, where am I here? Nothing is ever there when I want it.
Are you looking for your little pointy thing?
Yeah, here we go. This is, again, something that I think people created so that they could not exactly visualize, but auditorize the feeling of spanda.
I can't hear it. It might be editing that sound out, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a
not
mouth
going to do
harp.
it. Pardon?
It's a mouth
It's a
harp.
mouth
Yes,
harp.
for
It's a mouth
those who
harp.
can't see. If you go up to the top left, does it say original sound?
Yeah. Oh, wait a second. My original sound is off. What the hell
Yeah.
happened there?
Turn that on and see if you can make it happen.
There. Yeah, that was supposed to be default. So,
It's not always necessary to have it on, but for this you need it.
did I get it that time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Yeah, I've always had that set to default just because I like it that way. Anyway, that is another expression, I think, to help people auditorize, like visualize only with your ears, the idea of spanda, the universal vibration. The big old humongous Tibetan horns are another example of that. I think there's a reason that humans as a species love drones. And I've always imagined that it relates to this.
What's funny is I think this is why I'm so attracted to the sound of box fans, because it acts as a drone for me. It gives me a sense of like groundedness and being soothed. And when I was a child, I would often hum along with that sound and just like make up melodies and stuff because it has so many tones within it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a very instinctive love that we might have for these things.
Yeah. So, after that little digression, now this gets into an interesting thing. Line 12. If non-existence could be an object of contemplation, where would consciousness be to experience this non-existence? This is an action that leads to stupefaction through infinite regress. Line 13. Therefore, contemplation of non-existence is an artifice of knowledge analogous to deep sleep. It is not in this manner that Spanda can be known. So this goes directly to a certain subset of Advaita that falls directly into the non-dual bros. And this is basically Shiva saying that their take is not it. It's not right. This whole non-existent thing is kind of unreal, and it violates Descartes' realization, the cogito. It asks you, if the universe is truly non-existent, what perceives that non-existence? And to say non-existence perceives that non-existence is bullshit.
It's a stupid stupefaction, right?
That's the stupefaction. Yeah.
So this is a critique. It is an open critique of
Yeah. Of a
this.
certain kind of non-dual thought
Right.
that is extraordinarily popular in the world today,
Yeah, that's
but does not align with the actual non-dual teachings, especially the ones found in Kashmiri Shaivism, within the Trika teachings, the non-dual Trika teachings in particular. They listen to the non-dual bros and the non-dual babes and they laugh. Ha ha. Just like that. Ha ha. So, (14 and 15). Within the universal vibration, both doer and deed can be perceived. The deed as object is perishable, but the doer as subject is imperishable. The yogi, who is absorbed in the flow of samadhi, dissolves the ego connection of doer to deed and discovers spanda free from the actions and their fruits. Only the foolish assume that because the effort to act and the attachment to action have ceased, being has also ceased. So 3 lines for us there. Therefore, contemplation of non-existence is an artifice known of knowledge analogous to deep sleep. It is not in this manner that Spanda can be known. That was from the last reading. Within the universal vibration, both doer and deed can be perceived. The deed as object is perishable, but the doer as subject is imperishable. The yogi who is absorbed in the flow of samadhi dissolves the ego connection of doer to deed and discovers spanda free from actions and their fruits. only the foolish would assume that because the effort to act and the attachment to action have ceased, being has also ceased. Y'all follow that?
I see some faces that indicate we may need to be a bit
Ask a question.
yeah, feel free to ask questions.
Questions help. And I know I can count on Ilmar for good questions if the rest of you don't have any.
Or
But
are
then
brave
he and I
enough
are going to
to
go
ask
off in
any.
fun directions. Yeah.
I would like
Yes.
to say something that
Yes, yeah.
all the time the doer is associated with the deeds and the fruits of the deeds which doer is doing. But then if I am aligned to the spanda means aligned to my own self, inner self. It goes to self-remembering only, that if I am non-identified with the events and my actions to life, then there is no cause of ego being built up in that action, and that action itself remains. And then I am aligned to my own spanda. There is no connection of ego to the deed I have done. So that is a separation. And then whatever samsara is going on, I can stay within the realm of spanda, my own consciousness. And that's it.
Yeah. And that creates the nabija samadhi, the
Yeah.
samadhi that doesn't bear seeds. So you are no longer creating karma for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that this text uses the term samadhi right here, because samadhi and flow are almost synonymous. And you need that sense of internal flow in order to begin to free yourself from the deed and the doer, to break that connection. So moving right along here, 16, the yogi cannot cease to exist because she has become one with the source rather than identified with the ego constructs. The yogi realizes this continuous experience of being through the universal vibration throughout the three states. However, the non-awakened individual experiences being only at the beginning and end of each state. That particular verse to me is incredibly potent. So let me go over these two again. The yogi cannot cease to exist because she has become one with the source rather than identified with ego constructs. The yogi realizes this continuous experience of being through the universal vibration throughout the three states. However, the non-awakened individual experiences being only at the beginning and at the end of each state. So let's take a look at that.
What are the three states?
The three states, depending on who you listen to, are either waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. That's the standard answer. And I have a slightly different answer, which is mechanical awakening, mechanical awake state, mechanical sleep state, including deep sleep, and the truly awakened state. Now, the idea of somebody only experiences this at the beginning and the end is easy to demonstrate. So, take your hand and put it here. See where my hand is? Put your hand right there. Now, move it over here, real fast. And move it back real fast. Ask yourself, what were you aware of? We were aware when it started and when it finished. And all the stuff in here, if you are like most people who are not a Tai Chi master, completely empty. There's no awareness. It's like that. That is the analogy to this. Somebody who is trained in internal martial arts has been trained to have consciousness between this point and this point. So it becomes an infinite series of points within the movement, not awake, asleep, 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 awake. And what this is talking about is living your entire existence in that state of being aware, being awake through the entire movement, not just the beginning and the end. Does that make sense?
Also, there is one good example of this, that suppose I am driving my car and the road is clean. So I am relaxed, I am driving, I am lost in my thoughts or whatever. Suddenly something appears on the road and there is a risk of accident. I immediately pulled off brake and my entire body gets tense. So in that moment, I become aware that my body gets tense. And earlier I was relaxed, but then what was the journey from relaxed state to the tense state? We lost that. We cannot comprehend that movement from each point, from relaxation to the extreme tension. And if the yogi, if it is non-identified, then he can perceive this journey from relaxedness to tenseness, I think.
Yes.
It's a process in and of itself, right? It's not just like bam, bam. It's like there's a process between one state transitioning into the next. Yeah. But it can happen so rapidly that, as we've been saying, if we are not trained to that, it's as if it happens instantaneously.
And as if we miss the most important bits, because the in-between parts are the most important. Again, that's something that martial arts teach you, is that the place where the action happens is in the in-between parts.
And given that opportunity to practice and become acquainted with those qualities within the transition, you can build a different relationship to that transition and perhaps even have more agency over it or within it. And perhaps prevent a negative transition from happening in the first place. But of course, that would take a lot of skill, a lot of practice, a lot of intentional work.
So this talks about a shift in perception between ego constructs, which is the entire phenomenal world at a certain sense, to existing within the flow. And line 18 goes directly into this. Shiva, in union with Shakti, forms knowledge and its object in the phenomenal worlds, both waking and dreaming, whereas outside of subject and object, she is manifested as pure consciousness. She meaning Shakti. The manifest vibrations, which start with the Gunas and find their source in the universal vibration, do not limit the yogi. So, Shiva in union with Shakti. We see statues of this all the time. Shiva doing his dance with Shakti, like embracing him very intimately. And this is the joining of the still point with the active flow. So get your mind out of the gutter. It's not what Swami What's-His-Nanda told you it was. Shiva in union with Shakti forms knowledge and its object in the phenomenal world, both waking and dreaming, whereas outside of subject and object, she is manifested as pure consciousness. The manifest vibrations, which start with the Gunas, find their source in the universal vibration, and find their source in the universal vibration, do not limit the yogi. So the Gunas are the three elements that make up the universe. So those three elements, I always have to think about this for a second, so I'm...
Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas.
Yeah, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Sattva is the idea of something that is pure, refined. Rajas is heat and energy, and Tamas is matter and condensed reality. I find that there's a nearly perfect analogy between these three and the mercury, sulfur, and salt in alchemy. Mercury containing the spiritual essence, sulfur containing the volatile essences, and salt containing the physical matrix in which the other two are held.
Even we can connect it with Gurdjieff's three forces, the active,
Oh,
passive,
yeah.
and the neutralizing forces. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that this is where one of the places that Gurdjieff experienced the three forces was when he was in India and introduced to this. So, these are the building blocks of reality, or of consensus reality, of our phenomenal world, at their very base. And
I just saw that we had a question from Levita, but I'm not sure what
yes,
in reference to.
go Levita, tell us, ask us. We'll make shit up if we don't know it.
I always count on it. The vibrations of the overtone singing and the mouth harp, I asked, is that related to the enjoyment of spinning?
It could be.
I mean,
No,
it's not the same sensation, but I'm thinking.
Yeah, it could be. I know for me, overtone chanting produces a really interesting effect. It vibrates right up into the third eye, and it opens up the pineal gland. It also opens up the Bindu chakra, which is, when we get into part 2 of this document, we are going to touch on that. But there is a hypothetical substance called the Amrit, or Amrita, which is the elixir of immortality. And it is produced under certain circumstances in the Bindu chakra, and then is released down into the body. One of the circumstances that seems to produce this fluid and release it is overtone chanting. Just a hypothesis.
Taking notes.
The chanting of Omkar and overtones.
Yes.
It is for this reason that we can connect to the Bindu chakra, and then this elixir is released.
Exactly right. And it's interesting that cross-culturally, we look for that sound. You know, to chant the Om, it works the same way as when Sufis chant the Hu. Because it's all at the end part. Whether I go ah or oo, doesn't make any difference. It's the at the end, where you get the the good stuff. So, on to 20, we're almost done. The spanda that manifests, starting with the gunas, tends to veil their true nature. In so doing, they push people of unawakened consciousness into the cycles of samsaric existence, from which it is difficult to extricate them. In 21, turning one's awareness into the apprehension of the universal vibration in all phenomena, one's true nature as identical with spanda is reached in a short time, even within samsara. So, the gunas, the three building blocks of reality, like to veil their true nature. They hide in the incredible complexity of the world that is made from them. And it suckers us. And it keeps us fascinated. But turning one's awareness into the apprehension of the universal vibration in all phenomena, one's true nature as identical with spanda is reached in a short time, even within samsara. So what could that look like? You could pick an object and you could chant Om at it until such time as the object vibrated that Om back, because it is anyway, whether you perceive it or not. So the trick is to perceive that. Om, by the way, is called the pranava, the joyous noise of the universe. It's like, again, it goes back to the Big Bang. What is the sound that the universe makes when it comes into existence? It makes Om. So, we carry on because I don't want to be here all night.
Oh, Aaron has a question.
Oh, then let's have Aaron's question.
He says, would that be a form of entertainment then?
Would what be a form of entertainment? What that to which you refer?
Entrainment. Would that be a form of entrainment then?
Yes.
Chanting Om at an object until it says
Yeah, until it ohms back at you.
Om at the universe. The universe ohms back.
There's more truth to that than people realize. So, 22, one of the pivotal verses in this. The universal vibration can be firmly established by remaining awake to it while in stressful situations, outwardly or inwardly, negative or positive, or in situations that challenge one's survival. So if you can be chased by a tiger and still perceive the universal vibration, you're doing okay. Then 23, we always look for the 23. Embracing spanda, the yogi surrenders to universal flow. The universal vibration can be firmly established by remaining awake to it while in stressful situations outwardly or inwardly, negative or positive, or in situations that challenge one's survival. Embracing spanda, the yogi surrenders to universal flow. So this suggests that the best way to apprehend spanda is not sitting on your ass in a cave somewhere, but out in the world where you can experience these challenging situations and practice holding your connection to spanda. I don't recommend the being chased by a tiger. They run faster than you do.
Yeah. But as we were talking about earlier, sometimes, I've experienced this in the face of illness, where I had to really stay grounded and be one
Yeah,
with the
that
universe.
was a challenge to your survival.
It was, and yet it was such an enlightening experience. And of course, there were moments of stress and discomfort and even panic, but in those moments where I was able to stay centered, it was educational. It was wonderful in a weird way, honestly. And it was a window. Not that I would recommend getting, a lethal
No,
bacterial infection.
don't do it again. Don't
But
do it again.
you embrace the experiences as they arise, and that is where these principles can come in handy.
So now we get down to we're going to do 3 lines, and that's going to be it for tonight. 23 was embracing Spanda, the yogi surrenders to universal flow. Now 24. Then Prana and Apana merge in Shachumana, and through that upward path merge with universal consciousness. So Prana means breath, but in this case it's talking about the in-breath. Apana is one of the 5 breaths, and it is the out-breath. It is the downward breath, and it includes farting, which I have to tell everybody because I'm kind of juvenile sometimes, and I like anything that has to do with farting. But think of it as the inward breath, which brings in nourishment, the outward breath, which can also be going down to ground oneself. And this goes right into our breathing practice, and maybe we'll talk about that next week. Shachumana is the central nadi that runs from the base of the spine all the way up through the top of the head. There are 3, nadi means a tube, basically, and it's sort of like an acupuncture meridian, only different and more evolved in some ways. The acupuncturists will hate me for saying that, but I believe this to be the case. There are 3 main channels in the body: the Ida, the Pingala, and the Shachumana. Ida and Pingala are analogous to the vagus nerve. Vagus means wandering, and these 2 nadis twist down the central nadi, which is analogous to the spinal cord. So this breath work gets the energy into the central nadi and moves it upward from the root chakra through the crown chakra, and that causes a merging with universal consciousness. At that moment, the yogi, remaining lucid, becomes permanently established in universal consciousness, whereas the ordinary person, identified with ego content, sinks into stupefied unconsciousness. Let me read that to you again. At that moment, the yogi, remaining lucid, becomes permanently established in universal consciousness, whereas the ordinary person, identified with ego content, sinks into stupefied unconsciousness. And 26, mantras of the various deities, when they are charged with the power of the universal vibration, accomplish their function through the senses of the yogi. So that's a hint there at the end.
Let's read that again, shall we?
Go through that one more time?
Yeah.
You read it this time.
Okay.
You have a better voice than me anyway.
Should I start?
Start at 24.
Okay. Then Prana and Apana merge in Sushumna, and through that upward path merge in universal consciousness. At that moment, the yogi, remaining lucid, becomes permanently established in universal consciousness, whereas the ordinary person, identified with ego content, sinks into stupefied unconsciousness. Mantras of the various deities, when they are charged with the power of the universal vibration, accomplish their function through the senses of the yogi.
So what do you think this means? Don't everybody talk at once.
You can always guess. No one's gonna chomp at you.
Yeah, we're all guessing here at once in one form or another.
True that. Shall I call?
Just
Oh, Jayesh, sure.
I am giving it a try. The normally our breathing happens through one nostril, either left or right. So it's left is Ida, right is Pingala. And if I am in a balanced state, then breathing ceases to very slow rhythm, and the breath then travels to not from Ida or not from Pingala, but from the central channel, Sushumna. And if my breath is flowing through Sushumna, then I am in alignment to the state of inner universal consciousness. And maybe then there are various mantras of various deities. The mantras are the sound energies, not in the sense of worshipping any goddess or god, but these are the sound energies. And if one can learn and recite it in a proper manner, then that can help one to align with the inner spanda.
Yes. And if somebody wants a good mantra to work with, I recommend the Gayatri Mantra as being the one that will not steer you wrong. I mean, you could do Krishna mantras and end up with cows coming through your living room. Who knows? But the Gayatri Mantra will always have a beneficial effect.
Not that cows aren't beneficial, but you might not want them staying there.
Yeah. Yeah, and one has to be careful about doing mantras to basically trickster gods. And Krishna has a little bit of that trickster energy, just a little bit.
Risky business. You're taking it into your own hands.
So that's the first 26 lines of the document. We're halfway through. What do you think?
Omar, what do you think?
Well, there's a lot of stuff that we don't have time to comment on. But anyway, it would be really helpful to me to have the text in front of me. For
Yep.
example, you just mentioned something about charged with universal vibration. And I would like to look back on the context of that, because my understanding is that universal vibration is always present. So what is it that distinguishes the charged version of it? I mean, what are we looking at there?
It is actually an act of creation to take the spanda and play a particular harmonic of it, is how I think of it, that it becomes manifest within that mantra. So it's like you have the string and it's plucked and it's vibrating at its tonic note. And if I touch it halfway down, I will get the sound of its octave. If I touch it a third of the way down, I will get a perfect third. And if I touch it halfway in between that, I get a perfect fifth. So I can bring forth all of these harmonics of the vibration. And in order to charge a mantra, as it's talking about here, or charge a zikr, if you're doing a vocal zikr, it's the same thing. You hit the right harmonic of the universal vibration. You just
Well, it's
touch
getting
it.
charged as the mantra itself. Is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay,
Yeah.
so I misunderstood that. Yeah, got it. Makes
But
sense.
yeah, as soon as I get the video up and post it to the forum, the first comment is going to be a link to the PDF of this, which will also include definitions of the words and such things. There's maybe one or two typos in it, but you're tough. You can deal with it.
That'd be good. That would be very helpful for me at least.
Yeah. Well, I want everybody to have access to it.
Yeah, so we'll make sure that happens. That'll be in our Nine-Sided Circle Facebook forum. For anyone interested in getting a hold of that, it'll be, as Mushtaq said, a PDF posted on, the post where we share a link to this video. Hey, look at that, Jayesh. He's got, let's see if we can pin you for a moment.
Yeah, I can do that.
Show it one more time. Show it one more time for people.
Where
Yeah,
is
it says
Jay?
Spanda Karika. Is this a translation or an original?
Yeah, and that's a good translation. It's not as good as mine, but it's good.
It's from Jaidev Singh. He's
Yeah.
a very scholarly translator for this Kashmiri Shaivism text.
Very nice. Thank you. There you go.
Yeah, there's a few translations out there. Some of them are better than others. That one is a decent translation.
Thanks, Jayesh. And I've seen Zainab nodding quite a bit, and she has offered in the comments, the Arabic zikr works very well along with the breath. Would you like to say more about that, Zainab?
Please say more about that, Zainab. She's going, damn it, I should have kept my mouth shut.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of a background.
Okay, yeah, I do too, actually. So I'm going to mute myself for a minute.
Yeah, with the voice and starting from the root chakra breathing, it's quite like instantly you can get into that vibration. But actually, I have a question here where with the beginning and the end, how would you be able to hold that through if
Okay, so that idea of people usually only notice the beginning and the end. What you have to do is consciously start a thing and stay awake through the entire process to its end. This is why we like physical movement so much, because that's a great way to learn.
It's rude.
which you can do it with the breath as well?
Yes. And that's what we do with the breath is we want you to stay awake through the entire inhale, through the entire exhale, through the entire pause, rather than just going, oh, here I am, there I am.
I think with the combination of voice, it helps to stay on the process rather than losing it in between.
I could not quite hear that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sorry, we just need you to speak up or get a little closer to the mic.
Get close to the mic. Close to the mic.
Close to the mic.
There you go.
Yeah. voice and the breath combined together, it's quite easier to stay on the process rather than
Yes.
missing it. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. There is no voice without breath, but most of the time we don't think of that. So we don't breathe consciously with our voice. And I know you've been working with Noor on this very thing of conscious breath while making sound.
Yep. It's a thing we do every week.
It takes
Yep.
it from the passive to the active.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Zainab. That was perfect.
All right. So that's pretty much it for this. Any last questions? Because otherwise we're going to wrap it up because I don't want this to get too long.
Levita, you don't have to speak if you don't want to, but do you have anything you'd like to share?
I shared it in the chat. It
You
looks
got it.
like that the video is going to be getting a lot of extra views this week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's great.
we like that.
Awesome. Yay. Perfect. Cool. All right. Well, I think that about does it. If anybody has any further questions, you can always ask in the comments. You can pop onto Facebook in the forum and ask there. But yeah, we'll be posting the text so you can take a look at that, and perhaps that might even offer a little bit of clarity too. So
Yeah.
enjoy, and
Enjoy.
we'll revisit this next week.
All right. So here we're going to Brady Bunch mode.
Yeah.
Here's everybody. And so bye, folks. And we
Bye.
will see you same time next week if you're crazy enough.
Take care.